Hello everybody and welcome into what was a jam-packed week of UMass Sports. And this, as you know, is UMass Sports Weekly, your number one source for all things UMass Sports. Love was in the air this weekend for the Minutemen and Minutewomen, and I got one Valentine from my aunt and another from my mother. Cupid must have shot his arrow and missed for the 20th straight year because after this weekend, this host is somehow still single. But enough of that. A little brotherly love helped the Minutemen basketball team as Jabari Hines, Dante Clark, and Trey Davis had huge games this week, leading to a big win against VCU here at the Moen Center. And then Jabari Hines came off the bench and was out to impress as he dropped 37 points against Duquesne. The hockey team found a lucky date last Tuesday as they beat AIC in an overtime thriller, but got rejected at the dinner table by Northeastern twice this weekend, getting shut out on Friday and losing in Boston on Sunday. The women's basketball team received some tough love in a heartbreaking matchup against LaSalle. But Sierra Dillard and Bria Stallworth proved they don't need love as they trounced St. Bonaventure 69-60. The Minutemen Lax team found out why Jordan Sparks calls love a battlefield as they fell to Army Friday, losing by a score of 9-5 in the team's season opener. And to round out the show, last year's hottest team on campus, that word is ambiguous, women's lacrosse team kissed Holy Cross goodbye in a 16-5 thrashing. My jokes were on point. I haven't been yelled at for saying anything offensive, and the Valentine's references are everywhere. It's actually making me nauseous. So let's start the show. I'm Tommy Kaludi, and this is UMass Sports Weekly.
This is UMass Sports Weekly.
Welcome back in. Now on Thursday night, the Minutemen took on A10 juggernaut VCU at the Moen Center. Luckily for us, we had a whole UMass Sports Weekly crew, and Tim Dennehy was there with the story.
Big A10 matchup occurred this past Thursday as the VCU Rams took on the UMass Minutemen at the Moen Center. The Minutemen could not seem to miss early in the first half. See Dante Clark nail a three here. He would lead the Minutemen in scoring this game with 22 points. On top of the lights-out shooting from the Minutemen, the VCU Rams could not keep up with the fast-paced offense as UMass ran them out of the gym in the first half. It seemed as if everything was going in behind the arc as the Minutemen went 10 for 17, 58% from three-point land. They dominated VCU in the first half as they led 43-32 halfway through this one. Player of the game for the Minutemen, without a doubt, had to be Jabari Hines, as he was the spark plug for this offense. He would provide the Minutemen 18 points and 7 assists to help propel the Minutemen to the victory in this one. And again, the player of the game, Jabari Hines, hustling back on the floor, another one. He would have 5 steals in this game. That's right, 5 steals as he would help propel the Minutemen to this victory, 69-63. Huge win for the Minutemen in this A10 matchup.
So as you can see right there, a very big win for the Minutemen against VCU. And now I'm here with the man who covered the game, Tim Dennehy. Tim, thanks for coming in. Now, VCU is at the top of the A10 like they usually are, and UMass, like we've talked about, has been slumping of late.
Yep.
So what do you think really stood out and was the key to this victory for the Minutemen?
Well, it seems like all hands were on deck for this game. It seems like all the pistols were firing and the offense really started rolling. I mean, we had 3 players go double digits: Dante Clark, Trey Davis, Jabari Hines. They all combined for 58 points. Now, 58 points, they had 69 points total. That's a lot. That is a lot in one. But see, the difference in this game, the big thing about this game was it was a completely two-half game. The first half, the Minutemen absolutely destroyed. They just murdered VCU. No pun intended, or no, anything like that.
Yeah.
So,
It was all in clean sport.
Absolutely. But they did phenomenal. They did absolutely phenomenal in the first half. The second half, they really did not do great. They actually should not have won this game in the second half. They did not really do that well. VCU definitely outplayed in the second half, and they just happened to get the ball bouncing their way in certain points, especially in the last 10 minutes in the second half. Some balls really started going their way. In the last 2 minutes, they started rolling again. Jabari Hines really kept this team afloat. He was the spark plug for this team. And like I said, it took more than one person, and more than one person was scoring, actually 3 of them. And that's why we took on VCU.
What's interesting, you mentioned a lot there about Jabari Hines. Later this week, the Minutemen took on Duquesne, and if you want to look at this graphic of what the final score was, you see that the Minutemen not only beat Duquesne, but that Jabari Hines came off the bench to score 37 points, which is his biggest of the season. Trey Davis also contributed. It's really great. The Minutemen have been playing great these past 2 games. So, Tim, I want to talk about this Duquesne game. What do you credit as the main reason they won?
For this, I say their three-point percentage. They went 45% from three-point land. That is a very high number comparatively to the past statistics of this season. And this team lives and dies by the three. If they're hitting the three, then they have a better chance of winning than if they don't. That is absolutely for sure. And like I said before, just like in the VCU game, multiple players were scoring in this game. We had Antoine Space, Trey Davis, Dante Clark, and Jabari Hines all scored double digits. I mean, that is just awesome. This is the most points that they've scored in the regular season game, and it's the highest margin that they've won by. I mean, they did really, really well against Duquesne. Took overtime, but they did really well.
So you have a big overtime win, really thrilling, really exciting. You have the big win against VCU. You got 2 wins in a row in the A-10, and now you're steamrolling towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
You talked about a couple guys, Trey Davis, Jabari Hines, Dante Clark, and I'm guessing one of those was your player of the week. I want to know which of those 3 it was and why.
See, my player of the week, just like the A-10 player of the week, is Jabari Hines. He played absolutely phenomenal this week against VCU, against Duquesne. I mean, he scored 38, 37. He scored 37 points against Duquesne. I mean, that is just a monster number. Went 7 for 8 from three-point land. Now, let's talk about VCU for a second. His defensive, he had 5 steals against VCU. I mean, that just really does not happen. It's awesome. It was great to see. And he was the spark plug for this team. And I want to point out something else about Dante Clark in the VCU game. He had sneaky points. He had a lot of sneaky points, as in Jabari Hines was clearly the spark plug. He was clearly the person that all the attention was on. He was the one that was really the gas pedal for this team. Dante Clark scored the highest points in the VCU game. He had the most points. You would not have known. I didn't. I was actually shocked when I looked at the final stats to see that Dante Clark had the highest points on the team in the VCU game. I mean, if you score like that and people don't notice that you're scoring, that's a really good game. That is a really good game for the team. Like Jabari Hines, spark plug for both VCU and Duquesne, A-10 player of the week.
Got to give a shout out to Zach Coleman, who was in my summer NSO group, played some big minutes, had 3 offensive rebounds in the second half against VCU. Now, Tim, I want to throw you one last curveball question. Now, Derek Kellogg went with a very small lineup against VCU. Tyler Bergantino, I think, was the only guy over 6'5".
Yeah.
Do you think that keeping Jabari Hines as the 1 and making Dante Clark the 3 is the way they need to approach the rest of the season, or do you think they need a bigger lineup going forward?
I think after scoring 108 points, I think that this small lineup is what this Minutemen needed. I think that this fast-paced offense, I mean, the fast pace of the VCU game was just phenomenal to watch. They were out, and especially in the first half, they were outrunning VCU. I think that is what they need. They don't really have that presence down low yet, especially with Holloway not as developed as as UMass would like him to be. So that big man presence is not there. So what do you got? You got to substitute that with speed. And they did that these past 2 games, and it really showed. It really had positive results.
Well, speed and athleticism is what Derek Kellogg lives on. So you heard it here first. Build on your strengths and use what you like to use. Thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you.
Don't move, because when we come back, Alana comes on to talk about some hockey that maybe love wasn't in the air for them this weekend. But come back, because we'll tell you why you should be excited about them. Stay tuned.
The UMass Minutemen took on the Northeastern Huskies in a nationally televised Friday night matchup at the Mullins Center. Nick Renyard, who has the most games played in net for UMass, would get the start. Through the first frame, play was pretty even as both teams exchanged some good opportunities, but just could not find the back of the net. A good chance here for the Minutemen as they crashed the net, but it remained scoreless after 1 period of play. Into the second period, Northeastern would break the deadlock just 24 seconds in as Nolan Stevens set up Zach Aston Reese for the redirection on the doorstep. It was 1-0 Huskies. Just over 5 minutes later, Northeastern gains the zone and Kevin Roy tucks one in past Renyard to give the Huskies a 2-goal lead. More trouble late in the second period for UMass as Dominic Trento fails to clear the puck out of the zone, and Garrett Cockerill is set up and shoots one from the point, which finds its way past Renyard, and the Huskies begin to run away with this one. It's 3-0. Northeastern would go on to notch 2 more goals and shut out the Minutemen by a score of 5-0. Nick Renyard would finish the night with 22 saves.
And as you just saw at the end of the break, Alana Alonji was there covering UMass's 5-0 loss to Northeastern. But first, I want to talk about a win, everybody, a win that they had against AIC last week during our show. You can take a look at this graphic. Seniors Shane Walsh and Ben Gallagher were the heroes. Walsh had a goal and an assist. Ben Gallagher had the game-winning goal. It was in overtime, but the Minutemen were able to beat AIC to get their first win of 2016. Now, unfortunately, we just saw Alana's package, 5-0 to Northeastern. I'm here with Alana and Liam now. And Alana, first I want to go to you. How did just the low energy and the poor start, you talked about this all year, but how did the low energy and the poor start just really come back to haunt the Minutemen in this game?
Well, again, I feel like a broken record, but Friday's game was pitiful, for lack of a better word. I thought they were relatively even, in the first period. Renyard made some big stops to keep it scoreless through the first, but UMass did not register a shot on goal until 15 minutes into the game. That is just not acceptable in any college hockey game, I think, personally. They just looked disinterested, not mentally prepared. I don't know what Micheletto needs to do to get his team ready for these games, but whatever it is, he's not doing it. And 24 seconds into the second period, it was 1-0. So, like I said, they're not coming out to start these periods on fire. There's no energy, and they just look so flat. There's really nothing else to say.
Now, I'm a New Englander. We're known for complaining. But I think it was really evident in this game. There was a 4-2 loss, the game on Saturday, where the Minutemen fell to Northeastern again. There was no Valentine's Day love there. I just want to preface it with that. But, Alana, how do you think poor officiating and penalties really affected that game?
Well, to me, it did look like the officiating was sort of one-sided toward Northeastern. They called 6 penalties on UMass towards Northeastern's 2. And in particular, going into following Madison Smiley's goal to tie the game, it was 2-2. This was a relatively close game on Saturday, but there was a cross-check called on Gallagher and interference on Fryer, and this led to a 5-on-3, which gave Northeastern the lead to go up 3-2. But later in the second period, as the period ended, Austin Plevy would get pretty badly hit, and Micheletto thought it was, should have been a major penalty, and the officials seemed uninterested in what he had to say and ended up ejecting him from the game. So they lose their coach. One of their players gets pretty badly messed up, and again, we thought maybe that would light a spark under them for the third period, but they were flat again. So it just seems like nothing can get this team going. At this point, it looks pretty hopeless.
It does look bleak, and especially coming against a ranked UMass Lowell team. Liam, I want to go to you now. UMass Lowell has been good. UMass Lowell has been good for the past couple of years, and they've been particularly good this season. Their goaltending and scoring has been through the roof, and this has been a pretty solid rivalry. Do you think UMass has a chance to go in there and upset you Lowell in their building?
Tommy, I wouldn't really call it a rivalry per se. I would just call it a butt kicking.
They split last year.
They split last year, but last year is not this year. This year is just, like Alana has said, she's been a broken record for the past 3 weeks, and it's just all negative. So UMass Lowell has already played UMass twice this season, once in the Mullen Center and once in Lowell. 4-1 at the Mullen Center, and we were shut out. Minutemen were shut out 5-0 at Lowell. UMass Lowell combined in those games 75 shots to UMass's 36. So like you said, their goaltending and their shooting ability is nothing to be, is just nothing to talk. Well, there is a lot to talk about there, but the lack of scoring will be a problem for the Minutemen, especially because UMass Lowell can score and they can take advantage of the Minutemen.
Now, Alana and Liam, I want to ask you both one more question. You can split up the answer however you want. Mm-hmm. Alana, especially, you remember at the beginning of the season, you had that great line that was Dominic Trento, Austin Plevy, Dennis Krepchenko. You had Shane Walsh, Ray Pagozzi, and Steven Yakovellis running. You had 2 solid lines. They were 5-0 at one point, 5-0-1, and scoring 5 goals a game. Coach Micheletto has had to move things around, put different goaltenders in. I want to know, from your guys' perspective, is this a coaching problem, or is there just no passion there with the players?
I think it's both. I mean, all of these guys have been so quiet the past 2-3 weeks. I mean, granted, Walsh and Gallagher were able to score on Tuesday against AIC, but I mean, Kravchenko's been quiet. Plevy's been pretty quiet. I mean, these guys got to start stepping up here and scoring some goals. Through 2 games, they only had 46 shots on goal against Northeastern. I mean, that's really sad. They got to start. I don't know if it's coaching. I don't know if it's just they're at their wits' end and it's the end of the season, but something's got to change, and I'm just ready for the season to end personally.
They've got the talent. They have the talent. Like you just mentioned, those lines were great. I personally think it is the coaching. It's long awaited for a coaching change. I think Micheletto is. He, even just looking at him in the press conferences and the interviews, he doesn't want to be here. I think his body language just doesn't feel like he has any more energy put into this team. So personally, I think it is definitely a coaching change because the talent is there, and you just need to find someone to put that talent together and create a successful team.
Well, pretty damning stuff here. I mean, Alana, you talked last week about the transfer from Quinnipiac, who said the locker room is like night and day compared to UMass.
Right.
So things obviously have to change with this team, and hopefully they will. If not, there's a storm of brewing, and I think a couple players and coaches are going to get caught in the crosswinds. Thank you, guys. Now, don't touch your dial, because when we come back, we're going to preview the men's lacrosse season. As we did last week, John Anderson is going to come back in for a special visit, tell you why he thinks this team's going to be so great, and then Liam Byrne is going to talk to you about their first game of the year against Army. Stay tuned.
Hey UMass, I'm Brittany Collins, and it's time to pull out your notes. We're here with Brennan Baxendale, and it's trivia time. What 2 schools did women's tennis beat last weekend? A, Vassar and Army, B, Army and Quinnipiac, C, Army and St. Bonaventure, or D, St. Bonaventure and Syracuse?
My guess is B or C, because I know they went to Army. I wasn't sure about the second team, so I'm going to guess C is my answer. Army and St. Bonaventure.
Okay. Tweet your answers to @UM Sports Weekly for a shout out on next week's show.
We got a bunch of Lax Bros on set right now. Me, John Anderson, and Liam Byrne. We're going to talk some men's lacrosse now. Last year, unfortunately, the team finished under 500, and that's where they're going to start this season. If you want to look at what this game yielded, they lost 9-5 to Army. Ben Spencer put up 2 goals, but Noah Jones and the rest of the Army team were just too good for the Minutemen, and they fell to a pretty good club that is Army. They usually roll out a pretty good team. Now, John Anderson's back here, and John, you're great with lacrosse. It's your Jedi forte. Mace Windu had mastered 7 types of training. You've mastered the 7 types of lacrosse training. I want you to tell us what this team should look like this year.
Well, I think we were going to go with what last year looked like first.
Yeah, compare.
I'm going to compare and contrast. So if we bring up last year's diagram of what your average UMass lineup looked like, we have. At first, it was Noah Rack, and the left side would be the offense, by the way. The right side would be the defense. It was Noah Rack and Charlie Schatz taking the faceoffs. Both of them went down, so Kurt Hunziker was taking the faceoffs. At LSM, you had Austin Spencer there at the top of your screen, and then Ryan Izzo, who unfortunately graduated, one of the best lacrosse players in the country. Defense, Carrasco, Horzelt, Fahey, they're here again this year. Goalie from last year, Zach Oliveri. Unfortunately, he transferred to Stony Brook, most likely to be closer to home, as his father actually passed away a few years ago, so he probably just wanted to be closer to home is what my guess would be. He had the best game of his career in that CAA championship game against Towson. Unfortunately, UMass lost that game 9-8. And then at attack last year, there was Nick Mariano, Brendan Hegarty, and Peter Lindley. Nick Mariano, leading scorer on the team, actually had 42 points last year, 22 goals, 20 assists. He transferred to Syracuse for most likely obvious reasons. It's Syracuse. And then the the top midi line was last year was Dan Muller, Andrew Sokol, who graduated, and Gianni Biancan.
Well, that was definitely a lot to take in.
It was, yes. It was a lot to take in. It helps to be at every game.
Very good, though. Yeah.
Now, John, nothing is ever the same. Nothing ever really stays the same. Things can change, and we just talked about
Ed Sheeran told us.
Things change.
Everything changes.
Alana talked about it last segment. The hockey team has changed lines around. The basketball team changes around formations. I want to know about this lacrosse team. If something were to happen, an injury, the team starts to play poorly, what do you think could end up changing in the lineups?
Well, looking at this year's lineup from, at least based on this first game, you would notice that at attack we had Gianni Bianchin and Buddy Carr starting off the game. Brendan Haggerty moving to the X spot in the middle. That's what that middle attack position often is referred to as the X. Buddy Carr and Gianni Bianchin currently placed at attack for the first game. We did see Bianchin do that a little bit at the end of last regular season. But as people like Peter Lindley come back from injury, I expect to see him moved into one of those attack spots. Gianni Bianchin will most likely be moved back to that top midi line. Speaking of that top midi line, currently it is Dan Muller and Nick DeSesto, who was a freshman last year, and Jake Lasoskas, who actually came in on that second midi line at the end of last season. And then at the faceoff dot, currently Charlie Schatz and Noah Rack are back in the game, and with Brendan Schroeder and Ryan Izzo graduated, Dylan Gruder's taken over that top defensive midi spot, and Austin Spencer currently injured, so that means Spencer Weeks will be taking over LSM duties. He usually gets a little time anyway. And on defense, actually, all three defensemen returning, Kyle Carrasca, Kevin Porzelt, and Bob Fahey. Bob Fahey and Kyle Carrasca, actually, this is going to be their 8th season as teammates, as they did go to high school together. All seniors, all back. And in net for the Minutemen, DJ Smith and Dan Dolan will be splitting duties. They split duties perfectly. Dolan played the second half. DJ Smith played the first half. I suppose I see this sticking a little. Like I did say, I think Gianni Bianchin will eventually move back to attack, and we will see more of people like Grant Consoletti, who is typically he's usually on the man-up offense. He'll play attack. Grant Whiteway used to have that position. He also graduated. So we'll see a little bit more of Consoletti as the season goes on and as people come back from injuries. And it's not like these are the only guys that are going to contribute, because as Tommy mentioned, Ben Spencer, who was on the second line of middies, didn't start the game, obviously, but that second line sees plenty of time on offense. Ben Spencer, 2 goals in the first game.
So there you have it. You have some things that could change. You have what the lineup looks like right now for the Minutemen. And Liam, I don't know if you think this, but that lineup at first glance doesn't look like it worked too well against Army. So give us a little bit of a breakdown of that game. What happened, and why couldn't we just match up against Army?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, Tommy, we dropped our opener. UMass dropped the opener 9-5 to Army. As you can see, Ben Spencer, 2 goals, 2 ground balls. Gianni Bianchin, 1 goal, 1 assist. But the reason why we couldn't really match up to Army was we were scoring too late. We had some late goals, and back-to-back, actually, I think 3 back-to-back goals. But we just could not come back and capitalize on that. Army took 43 shots to UMass's 16. That's a big problem, you know? Army, 43 shots, UMass 16. You got to shoot the ball to score.
100% of the shots you take won't go in the net. Wayne Gretzky said that. Second greatest hockey player ever. Bobby Orr's number 1.
So, yeah. Thanks, Tommy. UMass ground balls compared to Army's 40 to 24. Army with 40 and UMass with 24s. You got to get the ball in order to score and to take those many shots, Tommy.
So Liam, being the stat man, you could see that clearly Army dominated every facet of this game, and Minutemen did not look solid. And things do not get easier, as they rarely ever do. UMass is taking on number 11 Ohio State this weekend, and give us a preview of that. What should we look for? What do we see in the Buckeyes, and can we beat them?
It's a tough question, Tommy. Number 11, Ohio State, coming off a 16-5 victory, a very dominating victory against Detroit. Who knew Detroit had a lacrosse team?
I didn't even know Detroit had anything. I didn't think they had money.
No.
They're actually technically bankrupt. They were.
Well, anyway, on to lacrosse. Coming off that victory, JT Bluba, his name was, 4 goals, 2 assists, 10 shots, and 3 ground balls. UMass is definitely going to have his number at midfield that game. And also Johnny Pearson, who had 2 goals and 3 shots in that game, also at the midfield position. So UMass are going to have to play some good D in order to pull off an upset against the Buckeyes.
Now, guys, I want to talk to you a little bit about, like you mentioned, John, guys leaving, transferring to Syracuse, Stony Brook. There is talent on this team. They went 5-10 last year, but for some reason they can never get the talent to really click.
The big loss about Nick Mariano is that Nick Mariano, as many goals he had, the second leading scorer on the team was Brendan Haggerty, who had 28 points total, but 22 of those were goals. Nick Mariano is pretty split evenly with goals and assists. He finds the man breaking to the crease, who quite often is one of those top midi. Dan Muller's the big guy who does that. They'll miss Andrew Sokol with that. Andrew Sokol was the 3rd leading scorer on the team. He's gone as well. But obviously Brendan Hegarty, he's a big body. He can take over that X position fine.
That man bun is fierce.
He has a mane. That's actually how I recognize him during the broadcast. I just look for the hair. Goes down to like the floor.
He's a big boy.
But then Peter Lindley as well had a big year. He's a freshman last year. I actually ran into him at an ATM during fall semester. He was a great kid. I recognized the number on the back. We hit it off instantly. So
That's cute.
it looks like he's injured right now. So when he gets back, it does look like he will have an impact on this team, especially if we get Biancan back on that first midi line. And I'd also like to point out Austin Spencer maybe was the king of ground balls like in the NCAA last year. He did some stuff I have never seen people be able to do with a lacrosse stick, just the way he scooped the ball. He's injured right now. Tyler Weeks is he's also good, but Spencer's the guy they ultimately need back. We don't know what the status of the Lindley and Spencer injuries are right now. Hopefully they're back soon. That'll give UMass a chance down the line.
Now, Liam, I want to ask you just to close out this segment. The team has talent. The team hasn't been able to put it together. Why? Why is that the case?
You know, I don't really think it's putting the talent together as much just going out there and competing. They start off with tough teams. You know, they go through a long list of tough non-conference teams like UNC, Army, Ohio State coming up. You know, so I think basically it's part of their schedule, but they have to just get through that. And their first conference game is until April 2nd, so they have all that time to pull things together and to practice. And like the talent is there, it is. They just have to find a way to, like you said, put it together. But I have faith that they will put it together throughout this non-conference stretch and be successful in the CAA because they did make it to the championship game, and I believe they will win the tournament this year. I hope so.
And if I could chime in quickly.
Do I have a choice?
No, you don't. I'm going to do it. The joy of NCAA lacrosse, too, is that so they get these harder games, and by the time they get into those conference matchups, it's almost like they've been playing harder teams. Mm-hmm. So that really gives them a lot more stamina and toughness for those games. And I know last year they only won 2 or 3 of those games, but the thing is about playing in the CAA is only 4 out of 6 teams make it. They nabbed the 4 seed last year with a pretty bad record. Because of the way the tiebreakers worked. But then they get a playoff game, they won the playoff game, and then they barely lost that game to Towson 9-8, the winner. Unfortunately, Ryan Izzo, as great as he was, he could not scoop a ball at the end of the game, which was the reason they lost that game.
UMass starts off against Delaware, their first non-conference game.
Yep.
Delaware is not
Delaware.
a team to be reckoned with. So.
What did you say, Delaware what?
Oh, I said it's in Delaware.
Oh, I thought you meant
in Delaware this year, and I'll be there too.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, thank you guys. Unfortunately, that's going to do it for the show. But if Jamie would be so kind, I would like to, of course, recognize the women's basketball team who lost a game to LaSalle this weekend, but also won a very big game. It's great to see them on the board. And like I said, the women's lacrosse team, 16-5 win over Holy Cross. I promise next week we'll have a ton of coverage on those 2 teams. But unfortunately, well, I'm about to turn back into a pumpkin. So. Like I always say every week, thank you for watching. You got to follow us on Twitter. Watch our Snapchats. Alex Francisco was on it during the basketball game. Phenomenal. You got Instagram, which we do, apparently. Facebook, Periscope. Tim's doing it right now. It's great. And, anytime you want to watch, just remember we're on YouTube. Look for us, UMass Sports Weekly. Other than that, I know you're going to be upset, but you can't see my face until next Tuesday. So have a great week, UMass, and go Minutemen.